And hello, everyone. Welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx to the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren. Jaime. Today, we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we'll discuss how one organization is empowering individuals with autism and developmental disabilities to lead fulfilling lives. Then, we'll talk about an upcoming event aimed at raising awareness and funds for cancer research. And we'll receive insight on what you should do in the event that you believe that you were unfairly terminated. And with students headed back to school, we'll discuss how FreshDirect is providing meals for students going back to school. We'll give you some helpful hints a little later on in the show. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I'm Daren Jaime, and you are watching Open, the show that brings the Bronx to New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers today on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Now, you can stay connected to us at all of our social media sites at BronxNet TV, and of course, our website at bronxnet.org. Well, some things have been going on through the course of the past week. We'll take you to a couple with our Bronx updates. We start off with news around the city. U.S. Senator Charles Schumer recently toured the Hunts Point Produce Market, discussing the future of the market and its role in supporting New York City's food infrastructure. Our BronxNet reporter, Kibben Aline, has our story.
Senator Charles Schumer visits the Bronx to push for federal investments towards the Hunts Point Produce Market.
If this market is not revitalized, New York will suffer a severe economic blow.
In an effort to meet growing food demands, the Hunts Point Produce Market will have to undergo major changes. The mayor recently committed $150 million to revitalize the market. However, Senator Schumer explains this change will also require state and federal support.
We're going to need the feds to help. We have asked Richie and I for a $380 million grant added to what the city and the state are going to put in so we can redo and revitalize this market.
The Hunts Point Produce Market remains the center of activity for New York City's food trade. CEO of the market, Philip Grant, explains what a new and improved market could mean for not only our city, but for the country.
It means so much for us. I call it a local project that means so much nationally. We support over 2,000 jobs right out of here, this facility. 65% of those jobs are folks that live and work right here in the Bronx. We support another 5,000 jobs nationally. So that's what it means to be a local project that means so much nationally.
Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson shares how this project will support the Bronx and a generation of workers to come.
This market has been here for a reason, and we want it to last for the next generation of 50 more years, for the new wave of Teamster Local 202 workers.
The modernization of the Hunts Point Produce Market will ensure the addition of union jobs to assist the people of the South Bronx. Reporting for BronxNet, Kibben Aline.
And thank you, Kibben. And now we turn our attention to arts and entertainment. Recently, New York City Parks Department held an event that's actually celebrating the hip-hop culture in Poe Park. Our BronxNet reporter, Brittany Schuyler Albane, has the details.
The New York City Parks Department and Hip Hop Boulevard welcomed guests to an exciting celebration of hip-hop culture in Poe Park. With a lineup of performances from upcoming and classic artists to games for children, there was no better way to celebrate hip-hop in the Bronx.
Bronx has nothing but fever, flavor, and music. You can get all the talent right here in the Bronx.
It wouldn't be a true dedication to hip-hop without the presence of the first MC, Coke LaRock. He told us a little bit about his journey and the importance of celebrating.
I was in that recreation room with Cool DJ Herc when it was 50 Cent. And then after that, you see us worldwide. And this is Hip Hop Month, so I'm the oldest cat in the game. I'm 67. So once again, this is my birthday.
As we embark on the 50th year of hip hop, it's crucial to look at the progress made, like becoming one of the largest mainstream genres and the addition of breaking in the next Olympic cycle. Newcomer to the game and winner of the Hot 97 Presents 50 Cent 5-Borough competition, Lazarus the Top Don looks back at the foundation the legend set for him and explains what he hopes to see for the next 50 years.
For the next 50 years, I hope that we get another reincarnation like myself and that people keep carrying on the torch that Coke LaRock created for us so that we can keep passing on this art form.
One day of celebration just isn't enough, which is why Hip Hop Boulevard and the Parks Department have plans to extend it until the 11th, which is the official International Hip Hop Day. Be sure to get in on the action at Sedgwick Avenue. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Albane.
And thank you, Brittany. That is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We're not out of show, of course. We want you to stay with us because Open continues right after this. And welcome back to the show. Birch Family Services is a leading provider of education, employment, as well as community support services for individuals with autism and developmental disabilities and their families in New York City. And we're pleased to have joining us the CEO of Birch Family Services, Matthew Sturiale. And we thank you so much, Matthew, for being with us, Matt.
Well, thank you, Daren. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you today.
Yeah, we're in the season of back to school, and I know that for you, that means some heavy lifting, but you guys have continued to do some great work, particularly with families and then those with developmental disabilities. Give us a little insight into your organization.
Sure. Well, we were founded 45 years ago, and we were founded based on the premise. Our founder felt that children with developmental delays or disabilities such as autism, intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, needed the appropriate type of attention. And so under the right to a free and appropriate education for all, she founded the Birch Family Services, starting out initially as an education program that would provide school-age children with an opportunity to learn and reach their fullest potential. Over the last 45 plus years, we've expanded to be a multi-service agency providing an array of opportunities for children ages 3 to 21 in terms of early childhood and school age education programs. We offer community support services such as housing, residential services, community supports, family support, and education, as well as life skills training and employment for people across the different developmental disability spectrum.
And for yourself, I know that really taking a look at those with autism and services of that nature. But let's drill down for a second, because when we talk about providing these services, what are some of the services that are needed that maybe us as the general population may not necessarily know that are needed.
Sure. So just starting with the concept of back to school, which we operate 9 schools in the New York metropolitan area. We have 3 in the Bronx. One's in Soundview, one's in Pelham Bay, and another one is in Riverdale. And starting with our education programs, it really was looking at supporting people with autism and other developmental disabilities to reach their fullest potential. So making sure that people had the opportunity to learn and to thrive and to learn the skills necessary. So we started very early on looking at early intervention supports for families or pediatricians who may realize that a child is not learning or communicating at the same pace, to be evaluated, and based on that evaluation, perhaps participate in early childhood programs such as our preschool program. Our preschool programs serve children 3 to 5, which are all 3 are located in the Bronx, serving over 300 kids each year with developmental delays, but we also do universal pre-K. So we offer all of those opportunities for people with both developmental delays and typically developing children.
And you also offer residential services as well. I know as a part of the work that you do. Give us a little to tell us about the residential services and how that's impacting families.
Sure. So I mean, 50 years ago, some older New Yorkers may remember that Geraldo Rivera exposed some of the atrocities that were taking place at the Willowbrook State School and the lack of support and care that was being provided. And I think Birch at the time agreed to be offering housing support to children, adolescents who were away in the state schools, to come back to their communities. And since then, we not only supported people who were in developmental centers and state schools to move out into the community in the lesser restrictive setting and the more independent setting and to be closer to their families, but also offered opportunities for families who had their child or adult child at home needing 24-hour care and support to move into a community residence in their community. So we operate several residences across New York City that provide 24-hour supports for individuals. So as families are getting older and they begin planning for what their child may need as an adult, we are able to offer those opportunities. And for those people who are more independent, we also offer supported housing for people who can move into their own apartment, but with staff coming in to support them a couple of hours a day, a couple of days a week, they're able to do that. So people can lead full lives.
I know one of the things that you're proud of is you just really had a back to school fundraiser, and as kids are getting back to class, they'll be going with a little extra boost.
Yes, yes, actually, that's true. As I mentioned, our school opened up on Tuesday, and the work that our staff does is tremendous. Our teachers assistants, and our related services staff in our schools, and welcoming children back of all ages into our school programs are great. But we also like to get them all started with a fresh start. So part of our back to school campaign is really trying to make sure that all students get the right kind of materials to get started. So we did a fundraiser online, and teachers and principals made up their wish list of what they'd like. And it's anything from having backpacks for children and families who might not have the means, and particularly with inflation going on right now, and some of the other challenges that families are experiencing, giving families a package of supplies to be able to support their child at home, and get the students off to the right foot that way, to supplies such as iPads and so on and so forth to be able to do that. So we've raised several $1,000s so far, and the campaign's continuing right now to be able to get us off to the right start.
COVID has had its impact on everybody, and particularly for your organization. Give us a little and tell us about how it's actually impacted and how you're able to still maintain being able to provide for these families in the midst of this pandemic.
The pandemic, as you know, has been particularly challenging, and we're still navigating it. As you know, we're learning more and more about it. And I think one of the things that we were very fortunate to be able to do was immediately move to first remote instruction, to then move into what was a hybrid model where children were coming in a couple of days a week. And now we've been into full-time classroom instruction. And I think, it was very, very important for young children, but children of all ages really, to get the right types of support. Children felt somewhat isolated. Families felt somewhat isolated, and trying to provide that additional encouragement and communication to families around what else we could be doing. I'm trying to ensure people's safety first and foremost, our students, our staff, our families, but then beyond that, supporting them in helping their child learn if they were either at home, but now that they're back in school full-time, building on some of the social skills that young children need, or building on some of the skills that perhaps people did not have as much opportunity to practice on a day-to-day basis when they weren't in class every day. And I think some of the emotional connections is something also with some mental health supports to our families and students has also been helpful.
Yeah, about that social emotional connection, we know that a lot of people experience that, simply being detached, having to do this, coming from a virtual environment. How particularly stressful was it for your clientele, given the fact that that social emotional component just wasn't there, and a lot of us had to rely on virtual?
It was a very challenging time, and I think it was a very challenging time for students, young students trying to learn through remote engagement is somewhat difficult in terms of maintaining, particularly children with delays, but all children struggle with being able to connect. Part of the important part of early childhood education is the social emotional connections and beginning to make social connections. Trying to do that in a remote situation is difficult. So that was challenging. Challenging for our staff in terms of how to instruct people when you're not physically in the same room with one another. So I think reconnecting again and bringing people in partially and then fully into a full day of school has been tremendously helpful. But I think sometimes our families felt isolated. I think what was helpful was that the communication between our families and our teachers, between our families and understanding how their children learn was helpful, but it was also very, very stressful for them. So trying to keep those lines of communication open was very, very critical.
Yeah. So for families that may want to participate in your services, who's eligible to participate and how do they get connected?
Well, the simplest thing I would encourage people to do is go to our website, which is www.birchfamilyservices.org. And on there is a listing of all of our schools or all of the other different types of programs we operate, from, our education programs, our residential programs, to our housing initiatives around supported housing, and our New Frontier program, which is really focusing on young adults on the spectrum, securing employment in the workplace, or focusing on health and wellness in the community. And so if you go to our website, there's a place to click on a link for services, and one will be able to do that. If your child is experiencing any sort of delays that's brought to your attention by their pediatrician, or your own observation that your child is not maybe speaking or developing their motor skills as quickly as possible, or along the same developmental milestones that you're thinking, it's always good to have an evaluation done. And sometimes your pediatrician may make a referral for an evaluation, or the Committee on Preschool Special Education can do that. And we do that as well. And we can help secure an evaluation to see if there are any delays there. And so going to our website can help direct you towards those services.
Yeah, well, man, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and being with us. And I appreciate having you, and certainly would love to have you back.
It was great having you. The time flew, I'll tell you that.
It does. Time flies. The old saying says time flies when you're having fun. And we did have a good conversation.
Yes, it was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for all that you're doing for the Bronx community and public information.
Thank you, Matt Sturiale, who is from the Birch Family Services. He's the CEO, and we thank him for joining us. And if you want more information, we encourage you to visit the website at birchfamilyservices.org, and then follow them also on Instagram at Birch Family Services NYC. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We got more show coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. The Damon Runyon Canyon Research Foundation will be holding the first in-person 5K at Yankee Stadium in more than 3 years. Now, the Runyon 5K has attracted thousands of participants from all over the 5 boroughs of New York City, from cancer survivors and their friends, as well as family members, even down to baseball fans and runners. And joining us now to share more about the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation's Director of Communications and Marketing, Meghan McCurdy, and then we've got researcher Dr. Natasha O'Brown. And thank you both for joining us. And Meghan, I'll start with you. This is the first time having the run in a few years. And so what's the anticipation like, given the fact that you'll be able to do this in person and you haven't done it in a while?
Yeah, we're really excited. So as anyone who's participated in the event in the decade plus that we've been holding it knows, it's a really, really fun and unique 5K that uses Yankee Stadium as its course. And though it's been great to have the virtual support the past 2 years, it doesn't hold a candle to the event in person. So not only are we super excited to be back together at Yankee Stadium again, this is the first time the Runyon 5K has been held as an after work event in the evening, which is going to give us a chance to create like a really fun celebratory atmosphere under the baseball stadium lights. So we hope you'll come, bring your friends, bring your coworkers, do one of the most unique 5Ks out there, and then join us for a party afterwards.
And Dr. Natasha, proceeds go to help in the area of research. Talk to me a little bit about this research for a moment and the focus of it. What exactly are you researching?
Yeah, so I actually researched the blood-brain barrier. You can think of it kind of like the bouncer for the brain, making sure that everything that gets in is what you want in and actually keeping the riffraff out. While that's usually good for your brain and it helps protect it, it's also a huge problem when you're trying to get chemotherapeutics into the brain. And so for my research is specifically trying to figure out how you can tweak it like a little knob to let better drugs in, specifically to treat brain tumors for Damon Runyon.
And Meghan, I talked about money being raised. Give me ideas about how much money you've raised in past years.
Sure. So the event has raised over $6 million since it started. And another thing that we like to highlight about this event is 100% of those proceeds go directly to researchers like Natasha. So there's no money going to the overhead. The money that you raise for the event, every single dollar is going to cancer research. So it really is a great way to make an impact while participating in a fun event like this.
And Natasha, for somebody on the outside who may not be so familiar, this work does go to help the research for cancer, but can you give us a little bit more about the research itself and how exactly that works out?
Yeah, so I mean, this money, I can not say enough good things about Damon Runyon. Their support has meant everything to me. They've supported me for 4 years of doing my postdoc, and then the Dale Fry Award that I got also continues it to transition. But this money goes towards me as a person. So it's not focused necessarily on a project. It's much more focused on giving me the freedom to really explore and see where the creativity takes us. And so I personally use these small transparent zebrafish which you can literally have these little embryos swimming around in a dish, but they have the same genes as you and I. So actually understanding how these things work in a fish, in a model system, we can then apply them to human patients. But because it's not necessarily the project, I get to follow these little trails wherever they lead me. And I think that power is incredibly important as a researcher.
So Meghan, let's talk about people who want to participate, because it's for a good cause. It's right here in the borough of the Bronx. And I know a lot of people have an interest in running and participating. So for somebody who may say, this is something I want to participate in, how do they do that?
Absolutely. Go to runyon5k.org. You'll find all the details that you may need about event timing, registration. You can sign up right there. And once you sign up, we'll send you more information by email. We'll send you some training tips. We'll give you some tips on how to fundraise from your friends and loved ones. And we'd love to have you there on the day.
Now, Dr. Natasha, I understand that you do research, but I also understand that you'll be running. So talk to me about that. Why do you feel important that not just doing the research component, but actually participating as a runner yourself.
Yeah, well, so I will be the first one to say that I am not a runner. My husband is the runner in the family.
Okay.
But I am doing it to get involved, right? So I really appreciate that people are willing to get involved and give us money to do the research. And I think it's really important for scientists to talk to the people who are helping fund their science. So I look forward to just talking to everybody who's out there and saying thank you for giving us the support that you've given us.
And Meghan, this is also special to you, I know, and near and dear to your heart. Talk about the importance of why you feel that this is so important and why it is so near and dear to you.
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why this event is so key is it is one of the best opportunities that donors to Damon Runyon can meet scientists like Natasha. They get the chance to actually meet the scientists who are making the incredible breakthroughs that have an impact on cancer patients' lives. And we know that that's meaningful for both the donors and the scientists. It's one of the few times throughout the year that we're able to bring our scientists and our supporters together. And we hear from both sides that it is really inspirational. It means a lot.
Yeah. And Natasha, talk to me about yourself, because what does it mean for you also being a recipient for this research, but then also, the foundation itself?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's honestly that amount of freedom and faith that they put behind you. Like I said, I've been funded by them for a while now. And so it's nice to actually be able to go. So I'm actually located in Boston, so I'm making the trek down to New York for the 5K,
All right.
specifically so I can get involved. And I'm actually bringing my whole family, so they'll
Wow,
all be there watching
okay.
and cheering us on. And yeah, I really just having that support behind you. I've done one event, a fundraising event for Damon Runyon more locally here, and being able to talk to people about my science and just answer some questions and having them be like, oh, this is what a scientist looks like. I mean, you can see me.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily like the white male stereotype, which I think is also good to have some representation of other people that are there.
Absolutely. Meghan, for yourself, I know that you participate and get this going, but the work goes beyond this. Give me a little bit about what goes on throughout the course of the year. I know this is one of the highlights, right? But there's so much more that goes on.
Sure. So the Damon Runyon Cancer Foundation, our mission is to support scientists like Natasha. Like Natasha said, we don't support institutions. We don't focus on a particular type of cancer or a particular research approach. We support individuals and we give them the resources that they need to follow their bravest and boldest ideas. And we've found that it works. Since our founding in 1946, we've invested over $420 million in nearly 4,000 scientists. 13 of those scientists have gone on to win Nobel Prizes. And Damon Runyon scientists have made countless discoveries that have completely transformed cancer treatment. They discovered the first chemotherapy and radiation treatments for solid tumors way back shortly after our founding, all the way to the breakthrough first generations of immunotherapies and other personalized treatments that today are used to shrink cancers and in some cases eliminate them entirely. Our scientists have made incredible contributions to screening and diagnostic tools that let us diagnose cancer earlier and more accurately. And they've made great strides towards understanding the genetic drivers and underlying causes of cancer that let doctors have a much better idea of their patients' personal risk profiles. And hopefully, those scientists can continue to go on and pursue avenues of research that may allow us to prevent cancer cases entirely in some patients.
Natasha, I know you've been doing the work for a minute, but give us a little insight as far as your work in research. We've seen a lot of progress that's been made in the area of cancer research. Give us your insight on some of the progress that you've seen down through the years.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm focused primarily on the brain, but I think there's been a lot of advances. And as Meghan mentioned, this immunotherapy, which is very personalized. I think I come from a very genetics background. And so every cancer is actually not really just one cancer type. It's a lot of these different mutations or changes in the DNA. So even though there are these 2 cells or 3 cells or 4 cells that are all next to each other and part of the tumor, a lot of them can be very different. And so unfortunately, these chemotherapeutics kind of tried to kill most of these cells, but then they have, relapses and little metastases and stuff. And I think recently, one of the strongest advances has been making these personalized, targeted treatments for a particular tumor that's in your body. I think that has had great strengths and had a lot of higher survival rates than we've ever seen before, because we've been able to compile kind of different avenues of research like genetics and chemotherapeutics and chemical design. All of that's going into the same kind of principle and towards a similar goal. And I think this interdisciplinary study and kind of allowing that creativity has really allowed a whole new avenues of treatments to come out.
So Meghan, before we go, let's get viewers an opportunity one more time. If they want to participate in the run, get connected, let's tell them how they can do that.
Absolutely. So go to runyon5k.org. That's RUNYON 5k.org and sign up today. We can't wait to see you there on September 29th.
September 29th is going to be, and it's going to be at 6:30. I want to make sure that if you have an opportunity to sign up, please go ahead and sign up. And Dr. Natasha, I want to thank you. It's been great having you. Also, Meghan, thank you so much for the work that you continue to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you. Well, we want to let you know that if you want more information now, don't hesitate to reach out. As we said, there's information that you can get that's easily accessible. You can go to the website, damonrunyon.org, and also runyon5k.org. We encourage you to don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up. Open continues right after this.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at bronxnet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
And welcome back to the show. The wave of people leaving their jobs over the past few years showing no sign of slowing down. And many are actually choosing and willing to quit. Massive reinvention of their ideal careers are now underway. Now, we recently spoke to employment law attorney Stephen Mitchell-Sack, discussing his book and providing essential information workers need to adequately protect themselves before, during, and after their jobs have ended. Let's take a look.
It's really a pleasure to be here.
Take a time for a moment because, first of all, congratulations. You're the author of a book, right? And your book is designed to help people out. So talk to us about the book.
It's called Fired. It's a book on for everybody. It's Fired, protect yourself and fight back when you're laid off, terminated, restructured, forced to resign or quit. In my 41 plus years as a practicing New York labor and employment lawyer, I spend most of my time negotiating severance packages for terminated individuals. Every firing is negotiable. I do it hundreds of times a year. And I decided to write a book which extracted my philosophies of how you negotiate and how you get more, no matter what type of firing, as I said, because every firing is negotiable.
And when we talk about every firing is negotiable, a lot of people were terminated during this recent COVID period. What has been your experience? I want to say, first of all, coming out of COVID, what can you tell us about how the employment world has shifted and how that's affected what you do?
Well, a lot of people now are still working remotely. Many people are not going back to the job. So that's an important factor. But essentially, the fact that people left after COVID or because of COVID really had no material difference from the other 38 years. I mean, we've been in COVID for a couple of years now. Like I said, especially if you are a person of color, if you are an older person, like in your 60s, if you're pregnant, if you have a disability, and you're terminated and you believe unfairly because of a personal characteristic, well, you should definitely raise your voice and complain about the firing and try to do better. Every firing is negotiable. In my practice, and I've represented, I believe, over 15,000 people in my career, more than 80% of the time, I get more money for people. And that's just because I appeal to corporate decency and fair play. I say to a company, my client has been here for 20 years. She's 66. This is probably her last job. She was terminated suddenly through no fault of her own. And you've offered her, a month's severance. That's not going to cut it. This is probably her last hurrah. She did so much for you during her tenure. She made the company X dollars. She saved the company, millions of dollars, whatever it is. She was loyal. She stayed through COVID. She never left. She, just did the best she could. She was a loyal and dedicated employee. And I think it's only fair and just that she get a better deal. And most of the time, the company will comply, especially using that type of approach.
Well, when you talk about being discriminated against or harassed at work, these are things that commonly occur, but yet and still people are sometimes afraid to come forward or really don't even know what to do, or they'll just bank out and quit, right? They'll say,
Yes.
I'm not taking that, I'll go somewhere else.
Well-
But Stephen, talk to me about this here, because if a person is being discriminated against, harassed at work, what should a person be able to do with legal ramifications?
It's an excellent question. So first of all, you should know that under New York State and federal law, and especially under the New York City human rights law, which is the most progressive law in the country, anybody that complains about discrimination is protected against unlawful retaliation thereafter. So don't be afraid to complain to HR in writing. It's got to be in writing. A lot of people do it verbally, and as Samuel Goldwyn, the famous movie producer, once said, a handshake's only worth the paper it's written on, right? But you want to put it in writing so you have proof. And then if the company takes any action against you, like if you complain that you are being mistreated because of your age or your race or whatever, and you're in a protected class, or your sexual orientation, let's say, and the company then demotes you, reassigns you, fires you, mistreats you in any way, denies you a commission or a bonus that you were expecting, well, then you have a pretty strong case for retaliation discrimination. In many cases that I've found in my career, proving discrimination is difficult, but proving retaliation, which is a form of discrimination, is kind of easy, because you just show that, on, let's say, July 1st, I wrote an email to HR complaining, and on July 6th, I was fired, right? So the proximity of what happened to you, the negative inference is that the company retaliated against you, and the damages are significant. You mentioned another thing that's important. I don't want our viewers to think that they can simply resign. I think resigning is always a poor choice. When a person resigns, they are forfeiting valuable benefits. They're walking away from unemployment, from medical coverage, perhaps, and they're losing their mojo in terms of their strength of their claim. So I don't recommend resigning at all. I always recommend hiring a lawyer like myself to speak to the company before you want to resign, to try to get you out of there with a package. Many times I have clients that have lined up and they're not happy at their current job, and they've lined up a new job, and then they hire me to speak to the company. And sometimes I get them a severance package, and then they go right out and they have a new job lined up. That's the smarter way to do it.
Well, you think about it, resigning is sometimes a very, it's mentally, emotionally grueling. A lot of people take a lot of mental energy in thinking about it, but I don't think that people think about how to resign properly and how to resign in transition. Sometimes it's the weight of the experience, right?
Right. I've been just going through this so long, and I just want it to be over with. I just want to move on. But then in many times, after so many years of service, you actually do yourself a disservice.
That's right. And that's why you shouldn't resign willy-nilly. You must always think about the consequences. You should try to negotiate a severance package or contact the company before you want to resign and say, I'm unhappy here because of the following. Or even this, suppose that you were a commission salesperson and you're about to get a commission. You know, by resigning, you're forfeiting potentially a commission or a bonus or a pension and profit sharing plan that was about to vest, or stock options. What you might want to do is, in your letter of resignation, you might want to say the reason why you're resigning and that you are not expecting to forfeit those benefits. And if the company doesn't give you those benefits, then you're going to seek legal action. So there's a lot of steps and strategies to take. I think the best thing is to always confer with experienced labor and employment counsel before you're thinking of resigning, because I can turn that confusion into a positive for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to think about because, as I said, you know, when it's resigning, a lot of people go through the emotional energy and then they just don't want to go that way. But walk me through this. I'm at a job and I hear the whispering by the water cooler that there's a possibility that things aren't going well. There's a potential for being laid off or mass layoffs. If I hear this, if I know about layoffs are coming, I believe that there is a strategy that you can employ to better assist, even when we know the layoffs could potentially be coming.
There are, and that's a great point. And in one of the chapters of my book, Fired, I'll just show it. People,
yeah, please again.
Okay, and it's brand new, so you know the book is just out. But one of the strategies that I assert is, if you think that you may be fired, well, there's some preventative steps to take to protect yourself. First of all, you want to look. Some people have a contract, but they can't find it. So you might want to talk to HR and try to get a particular contract that you may have that you can't locate. You certainly want to talk to coworkers and get information about what the company does in a layoff, right? If you know you're going to be fired shortly, well, don't buy that house, and don't necessarily buy that car. I mean, conserve your money because you might be needing it later on and you don't have it, right? After you don't have a job. The other thing is you want to try to figure out how to negotiate a package and what you're going to say in the event that you're laid off. And there's a chapter in my book, which I help people figure out. Like, you're not going to argue with the company. You're going to be cordial. You're going to be respectful if you're fired. You're going to say to them, look, I did so much for you. I worked here for 20 years. I have an expensive home in the Bronx. I have 3 kids in college. You want to appeal to their corporate decency and fair play. But you made a good point. The point is that if you think you're going to be fired, there are steps to take beforehand to protect yourself and to prepare and rehearse what you're going to say when you're fired, right? You want to get all your documents in order. You want to figure out, it's much easier to get evidence if there's alleged wrongdoing from a company to you while you're working than after you're out the door, right? So that's important as well.
So when we talk about losing your job, it really is gut-wrenching sometimes, especially if you have a lot invested. And when people have a lot invested, they feel robbed, they feel taken advantage of, they feel violated. And then we get to the place where we start negotiating with our job. Listen, if you're going to let me go, if this is the way this is going to go, we're going to have to make some, you have to make some concessions. And we know that severances are a part of those concessions. But too many people end up on the poor end of the stick, if I'm being honest, Stephen. When I hear about severances and what people say they're going to do, and I know somebody that's worked at a major corporation for a while, and they share with me the amount of severance in terms of time that they would be compensated. I said, that doesn't seem right. And
Right.
Unfortunately, I think that somehow or another, corporations and businesses and organizations, they just get over it.
I am living proof that every firing is negotiable. As I said earlier, doing this for 41 years, more than 80% of the time, I get more money for clients. And by the way, I don't charge a fee for that up front. I work on a contingency. So if I strike out, it costs you nothing, you know? But the point is, let me give our viewers some of the things you should be asking for. Let's say you've been in a company a long time and you're fired suddenly. You know, we throw 20 darts on a wall. At 5 stick, we're ahead of the game. Ask for notice pay, because isn't it fair after 20 years that they don't throw you out in a second, right? And the most important thing to remember is never bow your head and shuffle your feet out the door. You have to go back in and ask for more. Many times you will get it. So you want to get notice pay. You want to get more severance pay. Here's a formula that we use. Try to get 1 month for every year of employment. Like if you've been there at a company for 10 years, try to get 10 months of severance pay. You may not get that. So then you'll get, 5 months, 2 weeks per year. That's average, but you want to get that. You want to get the company to pay for your medical a lot more than, let's say they terminate you and they say, here, Daren, we're going to pay you another month of medical. What's that? I need medical for a year, right? Until I find another job. It's a pretty easy ask. And most of the time companies will pay for your medical under COBRA and give you more. Again, let's say you're fired right before the end of a year and you're expecting a bonus. Don't take that line down. Say, look, I worked 11 months into the year and I was expecting a $25,000 bonus. I got that every year. At least give me 11/12 of that bonus. You see what I'm saying? Or a commission that's about to be earned. Or let's say you're fired. So many companies fire people right before they're about to get stock options or equity or warrants or whatever. Don't allow the company to do that. You have to open your mouth. And if you do, more times than not, you will get a better deal. And then, of course, there's non-financial things like, why don't we negotiate a favorable reference, right? To say, and maybe have a letter of reference, a simple letter of reference that says, to whom may concern, Daren worked here from blank to blank. He performed his services competently, and we wish him well in his endeavors. That's better than nothing, right? So you want to get a favorable letter of reference. You want to get outplacement, perhaps, or cash in lieu of it. There's just a whole number of negotiating strategies that you should assert. And this is what I do. It's in the book, and this is what people should know about.
Well, Stephen Mitchell-Sack, I want to thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate hearing your voice. I think you've helped some people out in terms of not just settling when it comes to the end of their employment, if they have a reasonable chance at really taking that company on and possibly getting some severance or negotiations. You definitely hit the nail on the head there. Thanks so much for being with us. Congratulations again on the book. Yeah, we got to bring it back.
Thank you. And again, thank you for advising your viewers that every firing is negotiable. Don't just bow your head and shuffle your feet out the door. Speak up, ask for more money. Most of the time you will get it.
Stephen Mitchell-Sack, our guest, and want you to stay with us because guess what? We got more open coming up right after this. And welcome back. Well, summer break is just about over and back to school season is here. And FreshDirect is aiming to ease the stress of meal planning as families are preparing to fuel their children's brain. And joining us now to share more, we've got the Senior Associate Category Manager of Dairy at FreshDirect, Loanne Heilner. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Daren. Thank you for inviting me today.
And for parents, as we said, it's a time when they're really trying to get back into that rhythm. Summer, we know that, when it comes to meal prep and eating, kids do pretty much whatever they want. Parents give them a little bit of flexibility, but now's the time to be a little bit more drilled down. So talk to me about how FreshDirect is really working with parents and students to get them back into the educational atmosphere.
Definitely. So FreshDirect, really our mission is to try and make great food as easy to get as possible. So with this back to school season, we're really trying to make that back to school grocery shopping as seamless as it can be for those parents taking their kids back to school.
And when we talk about kids getting a seamless process, we know that can sometimes be a little long-winded, but for parents, they want an easy road in, trying to get the things done. What are some of the easy snacks and easy things that parents can put their hands on to really kind of like get that rhythm and routine going?
Of course, yeah. So one of our favorite products right now are the Sweet Nothing Squeezable Kids smoothies. The great thing, you've probably never heard of a smoothie that you can pop right in a lunchbox, but that is exactly what this brand has done. They offer a great mixture of fruit and vegetables. So they come in 3 flavors: a pineapple spinach, a strawberry beet, and a mango carrot. And this brand has done a lot of rigorous testing to make sure that the products are still food safe as they thaw out in a lunchbox for up to 8 hours. So on a busy morning, a parent can just slip one of these delicious and nutritious smoothies into the lunchbox, and their children go to school. And by the time it's ready for lunch break, they'll have a great smoothie ready to eat.
And I know a lot of kids are also envious of that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I know there's a special peanut butter and jelly sandwich that's also available for some students. So talk to us about that, and talk to us about the PBJ.
Exactly. Yep. So Chubby Snacks brand has done a new delicious take on one of those lunchtime classic sandwiches. They have a PB&J, but also for schools that are becoming a little more allergen conscious, perhaps going peanut-free policy. They do also come in an almond butter format. So great for those parents who want to incorporate a peanut-free sandwich in their kids' lunchbox. And very similar to the Sweet Nothing smoothies, these sandwiches are prepackaged, perfectly food safe to thaw out within the lunchbox. So on a busy morning, again, you pop it in the kids' lunchbox. By the time it's lunch break, it's ready to eat.
So for you, honestly, I know it's a time when it's a little bit busy because now as we're in this back to school season, you're seeing more and more orders. Are there anything that you're seeing people are particularly gravitating to during this time?
Really just that easy snacking format. So there's individually packed snacks, both for kids going back to school, but also even adults like us who are perhaps going back to the office for the first time after that summer break again. So definitely those individually packed snacks, looking for a little bit more of those healthy alternatives after indulging during the summer. So going for that really nutritious and protein packed option.
So for parents out there who may be watching and saying, listen, this is something I probably need to do to help me out, what do they do in order to access this?
Yep, so everything is available on our FreshDirect website. We actually have a dedicated back to routine shopping page that can be found right at the top of the site on our navigation bar. And on this page, you'll see all of our recommendations, from adults going back to the office to great easy lunchbox snacks to pop in there for your kids on the way back to school.
And so for yourself, how's it been for you? Have you seen a ramp up now the kids are going back to in-person classes?
Definitely seeing a ramp up. Typically in the summer, we see a little bit of softness in the business, especially this year as people were really looking to go out and travel again, eat out at restaurants. But now everyone's really returning to trying to figure out that daily routine again. And so we are seeing that volume come through.
Yeah. And so as the I hate to say it, the holidays are moving fast and furious our way. Talk to me about, are you making special preparations already as we're back to school? I mean, parents are just thinking about that, but I know you always got to think ahead.
Definitely. We are always planning far in advance. So we're already starting to think about Thanksgiving, all the Halloween candy we want to make sure we have to offer our customers, and even further into the winter holidays, thinking about Christmas and Hanukkah as well.
Yeah. And so, as you are now in this back to school season, are things the way that you anticipated it, given the fact that we are just coming out of COVID and not, well, as best as we can say, coming out of COVID, right? Better than we have been before. Are you seeing things the way that you thought they are? Are things back to normal pretty much?
It is really nice to see that the city coming back to life. I'd say things in terms of just business volume, customers coming back and starting to pick up weekly orders with us, they are what we've expected, and especially the office piece. So not just kids going back to school, but even adults starting to go back to whether it's a hybrid office schedule or a full-time in person. We are seeing that side of our business as well really start to open up again.
And for yourself, talk to me a little bit about the work that you do and how it all correlates with FreshDirect.
Yep, so I have the great privilege of managing the dairy category here at FreshDirect, which dairy really is exciting. There's a lot of new innovation in the category, but also some of just those classic fridge staples that customers are always looking for on that weekly basis. But especially within the dairy category, it's been really fun to see all of the plant-based alternatives that are starting to pop up across the category. So another great back to school snack that we'll be offering starting next week is Mini Baby Bell, one of those really iconic cheese snacks that come in the red wax. They're actually launching a plant-based alternative this year as well. So we'll be bringing that on for perhaps any lactose intolerant children still looking for that high calcium snack.
Well, Luann, it's been great having you here talking a little bit about the work that FreshDirect is doing is back to school. And for a lot of parents, they're excited, but they're also challenged because it means that you have that daily grind of making sure that your kid is taken care of if you're providing that meal for them. But FreshDirect doing a good job of bridging the gap. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, I want to let you know that unfortunately we are out of time for the show. We thank all of our guests for joining us. And most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch a recablecast on BronxNet's channel 67. And then also stay connected to us on our website at bronxnet.org. We also invite you, if you want a brand new episode of Open, come back on Friday. My girl, Rita Valentine, will bring you the best in arts and entertainment. I want to give a special shout out to all those who've been watching on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Until the next time we meet, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep this channel wide open.